Max Verstappen's radio message in Brazil wasn't just emotional, it left Red Bull completely stunned. What he said after crossing the line turned an already unforgettable race into a moment that shook the entire paddock. After a disastrous Saturday, a pit lane start, and a race full of chaos, Verstappen didn't explode with anger or frustration. Instead, he surprised everyone not with speed this time, but with words that showed exactly who he's become as a champion. So what did he really say after dragging that rebuilt RB21 from last place to second in one of the hardest races of his life? Stay with me, because this is the story of how Max Verstappen turned a nightmare weekend in Brazil into a masterclass of control, courage, and unexpected humility, the message that silenced Red Bull's radio room. The storm started on Saturday. Verstappen, usually untouchable, was furious. The RB21 felt unstable, unpredictable, and impossible to control around the curves of Interlagos. Over the radio, his frustration spilled out. "The car is dancing everywhere, mate. No grip. None." It was the kind of raw honesty that told you everything. Red Bull were lost. By the end of qualifying, he was out in Q1 for the first time on pure pacing years. The paddock couldn't believe it. The world champion eliminated before the fight even began. That night, Red Bull faced a choice that would define their season. Accept defeat, or start over completely. They chose the impossible. Breaking park firm, they rebuilt the car from the ground up. New Honda engine, new suspension geometry, an older but trusted aerodynamic setup. It was a total reset. The cost? Starting from the pit lane. But that decision wasn't surrender. It was strategy. It was faith in the only man capable of turning disaster into brilliance, Max Verstappen. Sunday dawned with heavy skies and heavier expectations. Verstappen waited in the pit lane, alone, visor down. The lights went out, and 20 cars roared into turn 1. He didn't move. He waited, watching the chaos unfold ahead. Then green light. He launched. The RB21 surged forward like a weapon reborn, cutting through the field with calm precision. By lap 5, he was already overtaking cars that had started 30 seconds ahead. Each move was clean, calculated, and mercilessly fast. Then, lap 13. Disaster again. A front right puncture. Verstappen's response was instant, front right gone. Boxing now. No frustration. No anger. Just command. He pitted, rejoined last, and began the entire race again. But this time, it wasn't survival, it was domination. The rebuilt RB21 was balanced, powerful, alive. Verstappen carved through the field a second time, his lap times faster than anyone's, his confidence unshakable. Inside the Red Bull garage, engineers stopped talking. They simply watched the screens as Verstappen climbed position after position, the gap to the leaders falling lap by lap. Lambiase came over the radio quietly, "Pace is very strong, Max." His answer came back steady and cold, "Copy." By the halfway mark, the impossible was happening, a car rebuilt overnight, a champion reborn in real time. The world watched as Verstappen transformed Red Bull's darkest weekend into one of its proudest. And yet, no one could have predicted what came next, not the overtakes, not the strategy, and certainly not the radio message that would leave the entire team speechless. From the very first lap of practice on Friday, Verstappen could tell something was wrong. The RB21, usually an extension of his instincts, felt alien. The rear snapped mid-corner, the front refused to turn, and the balance was completely off. He radioed in almost immediately, "This is undrivable. The car is sliding everywhere." Those words carried weight, because Verstappen doesn't complain, he diagnoses. The team listened carefully, but as the day went on, nothing improved. Setup changes made the car slower. Wing adjustments only deepened the imbalance. It wasn't just a handling issue, the entire aero platform was collapsing under braking. By Saturday, the frustration had reached its peak. In qualifying, Verstappen pushed harder than anyone and the car fought him every inch of the way. He missed apexes by millimeters, wrestled with wheel spin out of every corner, and by the time he crossed the line, the timing screens told the truth no one expected: 16th place. Out in Q1. No rain, no mechanical fault, just a car that refused to work. The radio crackled, no grip at all. It's impossible to push like this. There was no anger in his voice anymore, just disbelief. Inside the garage, Red Bull engineers stared at their screens in silence. Even Adrian Newey's expression, usually unreadable, showed concern. In that moment, the entire team faced a brutal choice: accept a compromised setup and hope for chaos on Sunday, or take the ultimate risk, break park firm and rebuild everything. Starting from the pit lane would mean forfeiting any grid position and exposing themselves to huge scrutiny. But Verstappen didn't hesitate. He looked at Lambiase and simply said, "Let's change it. If we're going to fight, let's fight with something that works." Those words sealed it. What followed was an all-night operation. Red Bull mechanics stripped the RB21 to its carbon shell. New suspension geometry, a lower rake, a different floor, and a brand new Honda power unit were fitted under the harsh lights of the Interlagos garage. The atmosphere was tense but united, not fear, but purpose. Every wrench, every data line, every decision was made to give Verstappen a chance. It wasn't about saving a race, it was about saving pride. By sunrise, the car was reborn. Sleeker, sharper, and built for attack. For the first time all weekend, Verstappen had a machine that looked like it belonged to him. Red Bull had risked everything, but if history has shown anything, it's that when Verstappen is cornered, he becomes unstoppable. That night in Sao Paulo, Red Bull's garage became a pressure chamber. Mechanics worked through the curfew, each step monitored by engineers recalculating load balances in real time. The RB21 sat on its stands, stripped of panels, wiring and dignity, as if the team were performing open-heart surgery. They weren't trying to tweak performance anymore, they were trying to give their driver a completely new car. Every decision was guided by Verstappen's feedback. He had told them exactly where the car broke his rhythm, how the rear lost energy mid-corner, and how the front refused to bite on turn-in. They listened, line by line, transforming that frustration into data and that data into design. By 2 a.m, the garage looked like a war room. New suspension arms glinted under the lights, the older Austin spec floor was bolted back on, and a fresh Honda power unit sat ready to roar. Installing that engine was the boldest call of the night. A new power unit means untested mapping, new torque delivery, and temperature behavior no simulator can perfectly predict. But Red Bull's philosophy was simple: a compromised car at the front of the grid was worthless, a perfect car from the pit lane could still win. They optimized everything: rear ride height lowered by millimeters, camber angles adjusted to give Verstappen the rotation he craved, brake balance recentered to his exact preference. When the pit lane opened on Sunday morning, the RB21 looked reborn. Sleeker lines, steadier posture, and an unmistakable aura of aggression. Verstappen climbed in, helmet already locked in a quiet trance. No words, no hype. Just focus. He knew what they had done for him. The engine fired, its tone deeper and sharper, the sound of potential waiting to be unleashed. As the grid roared away at the start, Verstappen waited alone, visor reflecting the chaos of turn 1. Then, the green light on his steering wheel flicked on permission granted. The RB21 lunged forward, the tires biting perfectly, the car balanced at last. Through the Senna S, it looked smooth, confident, deadly fast. Within the first few laps, Verstappen's timing screens lit up with purple sectors. He wasn't driving a repaired car, he was driving a masterpiece forged overnight. Every overtake in those opening laps was a statement. He passed the back markers with calculated precision, braking 10 meters later, opening the throttle earlier, keeping the car exactly on the racing line as if physics had bent around him. Red Bull's rebuild had achieved what many thought impossible: they had erased Saturday's nightmare and given their driver a weapon sharp enough to cut through the field. Then fate tested them again. Lap 13, front right puncture. Most drivers would have panicked. Verstappen simply radioed, "Front right gone. Box now." No drama, no blame. He came in, switched to fresh tires, rejoined last and immediately began setting the fastest laps of the race. The garage could hardly believe the telemetry. After everything, the RB21 was now the quickest car on track. By lap 15, Verstappen's pace was so relentless that Red Bull realized they could change the entire shape of the race. They had rebuilt the car overnight, now they would rewrite the strategy. Every major team, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, was locked into a safe two-stop plan. They were calculating, preserving tires, and managing temperatures. But Red Bull looked at the data and saw something no one else did. Verstappen's degradation curve was minimal. Even after pushing at qualifying pace, his tire drop-off was almost non-existent. That meant one thing: they could attack. The decision came quickly. Gianpiero Lambiase came over the radio, voice steady but measured. "Max, Plan C confirmed. It's a 3-stop. Push when I tell you. You'll come back to them." Verstappen didn't even hesitate. "Understood. Let's go." It was the calm of a man who trusted both his team and himself completely. From that moment, the RB21 became a missile. Each lap faster than the last, Verstappen began hunting cars that had started half a minute ahead. On lap 30, he dove into the pits for his second stop, a perfect 2.3-second service, and emerged behind the midfield. Within minutes, he was carving through them again. Overtake after overtake, each cleaner than the last. He passed Alonso with DRS open down the main straight, sliced through Albon on the inside of turn 4, and took Tsunoda with a daring move through Ferradura that left the commentators shouting his name. The crowd could feel it. This wasn't recovery anymore, it was dominance. By lap 50, Verstappen was in the top 5 and closing on the Mercedes duo. The pit wall went silent, their eyes glued to the timing screens. His lap times were purple, a blur of perfection, braking later, turning sharper, accelerating earlier. Red Bull had calculated that with one more stop for soft tires, he could catch both Mercedes before the flag. But the margin for error was razor thin. Lambiase's voice broke the silence again. "Box, Max, box this lap. We'll finish strong."